Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another replay analysis. Today I've got a Zerg versus a Terran Zerg. So obviously today we are going to be analyzing a replay from the Zerg perspective for you Zerg players. So we actually randomed into two Zerg here. And of course our opponents are not going to know this up until they scout. Typically speaking, the by far the best way to play in this race composition is one player plays ranged and the other player plays melee. So Lingbane Muta for the melee player, Roach, Hydra, Lurker, Viper from the Zerg player, or the other Zerg player. And this game, I thought this was a good replay to showcase today because I just kind of want to show you guys the weakness of playing the same composition from the two Zerg perspective and why it's bad, and just kind of go over like the little nuances and stuff like that. This game is actually pretty incredible. Just the length of the game is just, it really showcases why playing the same composition can be bad. So anyway, what I like to do with my overlords is I like to place them in places on the map that are attack paths, right? So you can see when units are going to cross the map. So if you're paying attention to the mini-map, you can see I've got an overlord parked right there, a little past the midpoint. And that's basically just giving me information. I could see if a Reaper crosses, I could see if Zerglings cross, things like that. So taking out the back rocks here is pretty important. And I sort of make a mistake here. You're really supposed to take your queens and attack the rocks too. It just DPSs the rocks faster. But getting access to that gold base, especially against Terran player who has the capability of lifting the CC to the gold base, it's very important that you get that gold base as quickly as possible. So, yes, at the cost of my teammate losing his quick third base up there, I prioritized taking my gold base. Don't know if that was the right decision, but that's what I did. And so thus far, I mean, I've only seen 4 slowlings cross the map, and again, I've got that overlord parked in the middle, and now I've got a second one parked in the middle, so I can see if there's anything crossing the map, right? So I haven't seen anything, and so I decide based on that to go for the greedy third and to go for the spire play. Now, I'm a little on the fence about this play only because I haven't seen a Reaper, and a lot of times if you actually don't see a Reaper, you kind of start to have to question, where is that gas going, right? Because he has a gas, but where is the gas going? Could be Banshee, could be Quick BC, could be 2-factory Blue Flame Hellion, could be 2-factory Cyclone, could be Mind Drop. I mean, there's a bazillion different things that it could be. So when you do this sort of a style where you don't really apply any pressure and you kind of play greedy, you just kind of react to what happens on the map with the overlords that you have placed. So I poked up there, saw some Hellions. From that point, I'm like, okay, I don't really need to get spores right now because I could make an Overseer and I've got a Spire on the way. So pretty much the only thing at this point that's gonna be worrisome is if he had gone for the quick battle cruiser. And to be honest, that's not very common, so I just choose to continue to play greedy, right? I can also see that he has a third base going up, and my third base is much quicker. And what that tells me is that he's probably gone for some sort of a tech play, but he's done it in a way that is much worse than my tech play. In other words, my economy is way better. So my teammate's poking in the middle of the map. He sees a bunch of Hellions. So this is where it gets kind of like, okay, so I have this. I should, in theory, have this lead in terms of the Mutalisk. But the problem is that all he's made is Hellions, right? And a lot of times, what that will mean when they've scouted that you're 2 Zerg is that the Terran player is actually funneling his gas into the Zerg player. When you see that sort of a Hellion count, because you can see, I mean, a lot of times Terran players float a lot of gas as they're transitioning or whatever. So to maximize the efficiency, they just send it over to the Zerg player who is going Spire, right? So while I didn't know that the Zerg player was going for Spire, I could sort of make a guess that that was the case based off of the Hellion count, the lack of gas units that the Protoss has made, and the lack of a third base. Right? I haven't seen this Banshee yet. I have no idea that's a thing. Right? So because of all of this, I decided to go for the +1 Carapace because I just kind of assumed that it was going to be Spire play. And if they go +1 weapons and you go +1 Carapace, you 100% of the time win every fight you take. Unless, of course, he has just an absurd amount of mutas versus yours, right? But if it's relatively even, Carapace is better than weapons. So immediately I head over to the third base. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind there's going to be something like mutas coming, and there they are. So I take the engagement because I just sort of feel like I have a better economy. And the the gold base is really starting to kick in. So even if I take a bad trade, I don't feel like it's that bad. So I just kind of want to kill drones and reset mute accounts because what at this point what I think will end up happening is that his teammate is probably going to start funneling him gas because he's not going to be able to get this third base, right? So here I denied the third. And so I noticed that the Terran player was going for Marines. So I could go for Lingbane, or I could go for Lurker. And in this game, I opt for the Lurker mainly just because I got away with a really good economy. And then so for me from here, it's just a matter of keeping that Zerg player off of his third base. Just constantly going over there checking. And of course, I don't really have to do that because there's an Overlord spotting there that hasn't. My teammate has an Overlord over his third, which is only just now getting cleared up. So, when you identify where the units are, you just take your mutas and go somewhere else and just try to get some damage in somewhere else, right? And so, if the Zerg player had got this third base up, I wouldn't recommend switching into this lurker composition as quickly as I did. But because my economy is just so much better than his, I felt like it was fine. But you can see, I mean, that Mutalisk count, even though the Zerg player, he doesn't have a third, that Mutalisk count is still incredibly high, right? And if you're paying attention to the Terran units, you can clearly see that um, he doesn't really have a whole lot of gas units, right? So the conclusion that I've come to in this game is that he is getting gas fed. And that's just sort of why I can't really just kill Zerg. Between the gas feed and the Widow Mines and the Marines and stuff like that, pretty much my only option here is to continue to grow my economy and just sort of do damage where I can here and there. And I haven't really been paying much attention to my teammate, which is kind of a mistake on my part because I sort of just started to wig out and build these Hydras for basically no reason. Um, because I believe my teammate has Ling Bane, which should be more than enough. I mean, because you got to think that's a lot of gas. I mean, I could have put that into Vipers to, kill his mute account or something else. I feel like Hydra's was not necessarily bad, but I feel like if I had more mutas, maybe I could just straight up in the game. So from here, I'm not taking very good trades, but it's fine. At least I think it's fine because I have such a huge economy versus the Zerg. Maybe not so much Terran because he has that gold base. Like, you need to have 5 base against a 3 base Terran who has a gold base. But, I'm doing pretty good damage with the Lurkers. But that Mutalisk count is still incredibly high. It's like higher than both of ours, right? And it's like, what is going on here? So the Terran player, he just keeps funneling money into the Zerg for a higher and higher muta count. So I think realistically the best option here, instead of going for the Lurker, it probably would have been better to go straight into the Viper composition. But what I will also say is that because my teammate, so if we think about this for a second, by the time my teammate's Spire was even halfway done, I had mutas across the map denying the Zerg third base, right? And as a player in solo queue, you know, you have to make sure that you're checking out your teammate's composition because I think that in this game, if my teammate had gone for Roach, Hydra, Viper, Lurker, which is generally how you want to play this composition, I don't think this game goes even to 9 minutes. But because my teammate chose to go for the same composition that I was going for, you can just sort of see how cost effective Mines, Marines, and Mutas can be in this matchup if you both have gone for the same comp. Now, of course, there is the element of feed, but you just sort of have to factor that into the equation, right? And so I'm of the mind that if my teammate had gone for Roach, Hydra, Viper, Lurker, this game would have ended a lot sooner. Because, I mean, I am just super, super, super far ahead of the Zerg player, right? So, we can just clearly see that most of the trades that we take, the only reason it's kind of sorta does anything is just the mass amount that we have. But I mean, with considering how far ahead we are here, I mean, look at our bases. We got 8 base. They've got what? 1, 2, 3, 4. They got 4 base, and we have 8 base. So this should put into perspective why going for the same comp is really, really bad. It just and this doesn't just go for ZZ. This goes for TT. This goes for PP. You do not want to be making the same comps because it, like I've said in previous videos, it just makes it so much easier for your opponents to counter the comp that you're building, right? And I just thought that this replay was a very, very good example of that concept that I talk about all the time in previous videos, right? So, it's not as if we're at any risk of losing, but the fact of the matter is that we have to go up to 9 base, 10 base before we can actually win this game. All the while, our opponents are still. Look at this. He's mined out for the most part on both bases. He's mined out for the most part on his bases. But it's still a game because their comp is so cost effective against our comp, right? So I'm just sort of hoping that this game puts into perspective why you really shouldn't be playing the same comp from both perspectives in the game. So it's looking really dicey here, right? Well, fortunately, my teammate went for the Banes. And the Banes, without immaculate control, are going to clean this up, right? And plus, we just have like a lot of mutas, and we just have a lot of stuff. So, truth be told, I mean, really, the only reason we win this game is because of the fact that we're on 10 base and they're still only on 2. So it's just incredibly weak, right? Playing the same comp from both perspectives is just incredibly weak. And maybe perhaps if I had done a little better on my upgrades, or I'm sure there are things that I could have done to make this look a lot easier. But yeah. So anyway, from here it's just sort of pretty self-explanatory. You're too far ahead, they can't win. Your supply's too high, their supply's too low, stuff like that. So, but they hold on for another minute, don't they? It's just crazy, crazy, crazy how far ahead we are, but we just can't close the game. So, there it is. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, hit that thumbs up. If you don't, hit the thumbs down and subscribe for more. I will see you guys with the next video. Thank you for tuning in, and have a good day.